So in the opening words, I referenced a scripture in the Hebrew scriptures. It's a turning point in the Israelites' relationship with God. Up until this point, they had always looked to God to bless them, that everything good came from the divine personality, the divine out there. And because they were doing okay at this point, anyone who studies the Bible and the history of the Israelites knows that it is a story of circles moving forward, not a straight line. A story of a people who live well and ethically and morally and are getting along with their neighbors, and then sin. Now remember, I explained sin means missing the mark. So it could be being aggressive toward your neighbors. It could be having a government that has become corrupt and not just anymore. It could be diminishing the dignity and worth of certain individuals within the society. The history is one of coming up and going down and coming up and going down, of redemption and falling and redemption and falling. And does that sound a little bit like your life? Does sound a little bit like mine. So fairly early on in Genesis, the divine personality wanted to empower the Israelites to not be so dependent, to be empowered, to take control, to fashion their own destiny, to become co-creators of the experience that they were going to have in this world. And so in Genesis 12:2, God says to the Israelites, "I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing to the nations." That's a turning point. That's a moment in which the Israelites receive a blessing of empowerment and then are told, essentially a non-biblical saying everyone thinks comes from the Bible, "To whom those much has been given, much is expected." How many have heard that? Yeah, how many thought it was from the Bible? Yeah, me too. It was a little bit of a shock to find out it's not in there. But the message is, if you have received blessings, it is yours to be a blessing. Now, what greatness means, what largeness means, is all kind of relative. So there's this great Hasidic, that's a flavor of Judaism, a great Hasidic tale about a family who are contemplating whether or not the in-laws should come and live with them. And the man of the house goes to the rabbi and says, "Rabbi, I've got a wife and a couple of kids, and we have a space about this big. And my in-laws are thinking of coming and living with us. What do you think, Rabbi?" Because wait a minute, Rabbi, before you tell me, let me just say that there's going to be a lot of noise, right? I mean, it's already 2 kids and farm animals and stuff like that running around the yard, but now we're going to have 2 more people in the house, and they'll be talking all the time, and there'll be, a hubbub, and maybe the older folks won't like that the younger folks are running around, and they'll correct that. It's just going to be a lot. What do you think, Rabbi? And the rabbi says, "Here's what I think. I think you should let them come and live with you." Okay. I trust you, Rabbi. You are a wise leader. So the man goes home. In-laws come in and all their furnishings. Some gets put into the kitchen. Some gets put into the living room. Some gets put into their bedroom. And it's just a lot. And everyone is a little bit on edge with each other. So the man goes back to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, this is what happened. I did what you said. I brought them in. We got their stuff all kind of, stuck in here and there. It's all combined. But there's just a lot going on, and we feel like everything's gotten so smaller. And the rabbi says, do you have chickens? Oh, yeah, we have a farm. We have chickens. Well, bring the chickens into the house. That'll take care of it. Really, Rabbi? So he does. He's a good Jew, does what his rabbi says. So he goes and he brings the chickens in. And after a little while, he comes back to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, I did what you said. I brought the chickens in, but now there are chickens running everywhere, and it's just really loud, and it feels really small. And Rabbi said, okay, you have goats? Oh, yeah, we got 2 or 3 goats. We'll bring them into the house. Are you sure, Rabbi? Oh, yeah, I'm absolutely sure. Okay. So he brings the goats. Of course, it didn't take very long before he's back at the rabbi's door and says, Rabbi, I did what you said, but now it just seems to have gotten smaller and smaller and louder and louder. What should I do? And he says, do you have any sheep? Yes, Rabbi, we've got sheep. Well, bring them into the house. What? There's hardly room just do what I say. Okay. So he brought in the sheep. And of course, it didn't take but a few hours before he's back at the door going, Rabbi, it's just awful. He said, I tell you what, why don't we try this? Why don't you put the chickens back in their coop and the goats back in their pasture and the sheep back out, put them all back where they were. So he went home and he did that, and everybody pitched in and cleaned up. And when they were done, they all agreed that this was the most spacious, quiet, comfortable home anyone could ever want. So life's kind of like that, right? Whether we are blessed or not, whether we have much or not, often depends on our perspective. Because there's always someone who has more and always someone who has less. And I bet you thought I was talking about furniture and money and cars, but I'm talking about talents, energy, wisdom. These are the blessings that we come with built in, and we have different measures, all of us. And it's when we come together that we comfort each other and we become the best that we can be. Just like our Sunday of mishaps and kinks, it took 3 of it. How many Unitarians does it take to light a chalice? 3 today. Okay. 4, actually. 4 today. So it's really in our perspective and how we see things, and we are in control of that largely. Life brings us all kinds of situations, challenges, and it's how we interpret them as to whether we can find the blessing hidden in them. Now, this is where Reverend Ron's memorial service fits. And what I'll say is there's one detail that Donna left out, and that is that there's a little bit she didn't know and a detail she left out. So what she didn't know is that Reverend Carol Badeau and I didn't know each other before Reverend Ron died, but she is a close friend of his, and he asked her to provide the memorial service, and I was more than happy to accommodate. And we got to know each other in the process. And she mentioned the white birds were significant to Reverend Ron and wondered if we could find some white birds. And I spoke to someone about that, and we were gonna do origami white birds, and then I forgot about it, and I have forgotten who the someone is, so don't fess up, it's okay. And as she started talking about it from the pulpit here to the mourners at Reverend Ron's memorial, I'm sitting there going, oh, damn. I blew that. And all the things that had been happening recently, I just totally never thought about it. Shoot. We could have had little white birds. So I'm focusing on what we don't have. She also mentioned that she was here for his ordination, as many of you may have been, and in the ordination, a whole flock of white birds landed during the ordination. So it was a real thing for Reverend Ron, this white bird stuff. So I'm just feeling, ugh. And then the assembled congregation gasped almost in unison. They may not have heard each other from there, but up here, we were like, what the heck just happened? It's like, and then people started pointing, white bird, white bird. What a blessing, I'm off the hook. Now, I know some of you think that's a coincidence. I don't. I live in a lightly mystical universe in which things happen all the time that I can't explain. And I love it. Now, there's another blessing to me of that experience, and that was Reverend Carol and I, we became good friends. We spent time that evening together until midnight. So I have a new friend. And Reverend Ron's life was celebrated. I felt like I knew him after the memorial service because people had shared such beautiful and intimate, portraits of his life and what he meant to them. And that's a good memorial service. That's what we all want. So the question sometimes is, like in our Wisdom for All Ages story, can we recognize the blessing in the moment? When we get rain, can we recognize the blessing in it? Reverend Aaliyah Kemmler asked this question, pertinent question. So what then does it mean to offer a blessing or to be a blessing? Because that's what the divine presence wants for us, to be a blessing to each other. So how are we going to do that? She explains that to bless something or someone is to invoke its wholeness, to help remind the person or thing you are blessing of its essence, its sacredness, its beauty, and to help remind yourself of that too. Blessing doesn't fix anything. It's not a cure. A blessing doesn't fix us. It does not instill health or well-being or strength. Instead, now listen carefully, instead, it reminds us that those things are already there within us. We have to remember them, we have to bring them forward, and we have to share them with each other. Reverend Robin Tanner provides us with a series of blessings, kind of like the blessings from the Sermon on the Mount. She's done a modern UU rendition of her own. It focuses on people who are willing to take risks, who are willing to put themselves out there a little bit. And it goes like this. Blessed are they who fall in the mud, who jump with gusto and rip the pants, who skin the elbows and bruise the ego, for they shall know the sweetness of risk. Blessed are those who make giant mistakes, whose intentions are good, but impact has injured, who know the hot sense of regret and ask for mercy, for their hearts will know the gift of forgiveness. Blessed are they who have seen a D or an F or a C or any letter less than perfect, or who have painfully familiar with the red pen and the labels as less than, for they know the wisdom of imperfection. Blessed are they who refuse to listen to the naysayers, for their hearts will be houses for hope. And blessed are those who see beyond the surface of another, for they will be able to delight in the gift of compassion. Blessed are they who stop running the race to help a fellow traveler, who pick up the fallen, who stop for the injured, for they shall know the kindness of strangers. And I add, blessed are those who, faced with rain, sing and dance in it.